It began with something so ordinary that no one could have predicted the storm it would unleash. Songyun, known for her warm smile and unshakable professionalism, had just wrapped up a long day of filming. Her phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from friends, her manager, and colleagues. Exhausted, she recorded a quick voice note meant for a close friend, a private, vulnerable message she never intended anyone else to hear. But fate had other plans. Instead of landing in her friend's inbox, the voice note went to Shu Kai. Yes, Shu Kai, the co-star who had shared electric on-screen chemistry with her, the man whose very presence seemed to shift the atmosphere on set. At first, she didn't realize the mistake. But when he opened the message, what he heard would change everything between them. The voice note wasn't just a casual update about her day. It was raw, unfiltered emotion. Songyun spoke about her fears of being misunderstood, the loneliness she sometimes felt even in the spotlight, and most shocking of all, she admitted she found it harder and harder to separate her character's feelings from her own when Shu Kai was near. "It's confusing," she confessed in the voice note, her voice trembling. "When I look at him, I'm not sure if it's acting anymore." Shu Kai sat in silence, listening to the message on repeat. The words clung to him, echoing long after the note ended. He could have deleted it immediately, but instead, he pressed the lock button, slipped the phone back into his pocket, and closed his eyes. Something in him shifted that night. The next day on set, the air between them felt different. Songyun greeted him with her usual bright smile, unaware of what he had heard. Shu Kai, however, struggled to look at her the same way. Every glance felt loaded. Every line they exchanged in character was heavy with unspoken truth. He carried the weight of that voice note like a secret flame, one he refused to extinguish. Behind the cameras, his behavior became more protective. When Songyun slipped on a wet floor during rehearsal, Shu Kai reached out instantly, holding her longer than necessary. Crew members noticed the lingering touches, the subtle looks. Rumors began to swirl, but neither of them addressed it. Only Shu Kai knew why his demeanor had changed, and only he understood the significance of keeping that message. Days turned into weeks, and Shu Kai couldn't bring himself to tell her. Every time he thought about mentioning it, he stopped. Something told him that if he confessed he had heard her words, everything might fall apart. So instead, he kept the voice note close, replaying it whenever he felt the need to remind himself that behind the dazzling actress, there was a woman struggling with feelings she dared not voice aloud. But the secret couldn't remain hidden forever. One late evening, after an intense shoot, the two sat side by side in the quiet of an empty studio. The set was dark, lit only by a few scattered stage lights. Songyun, exhausted, leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. Shu Kai glanced at her, debating whether to finally bring up the voice note. The silence between them stretched, and then, as if fate intervened again, her phone buzzed with a new message. She picked it up, scrolled, and froze. Her face drained of color. Shu Kai immediately noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched into his voice. She turned slowly to him, her voice barely a whisper. "Shu Kai, did you receive something from me a few weeks ago? By mistake?" His heart skipped. For the first time, the secret was on the table. There was no escaping now. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and admitted softly, "Yes. I got the voice note." Songyun's eyes widened in horror. She covered her mouth with her hand, trembling. "Oh my God, you listened?" "I did," he said, his tone steady but gentle. "And I kept it." Her pulse raced, her breath quickening. The weight of humiliation pressed down on her. She wanted to disappear. "Shu Kai, I never meant for you to hear that. It was private. Please." But before she could finish, he cut her off with words she never expected. "I kept it because it meant something to me." She blinked, stunned. The room felt charged, the air electric. Shu Kai leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you know how many times I've played it back? Not because I wanted to embarrass you. Not because I wanted to use it against you. But because every word reminded me of what I couldn't say myself." Songyun's world spun. She stared at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "What are you saying?" Shu Kai inhaled deeply, finally letting out the truth that had been burning inside him. I kept it because I feel the same. I've felt it for a long time. That note wasn't just your secret, it was mine too. The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of stage lights. Songyun's tears welled up, not out of sadness but from the overwhelming rush of relief, fear, and longing. "Shu Kai," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You shouldn't have kept it." "Maybe not," he admitted, his gaze locking onto hers. "But if I hadn't, I would have lost the courage to tell you how I truly feel. That note was my anchor." And then, as if pulled by an unseen force, Shu Kai reached out, his fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she gripped his hand tightly, the unspoken emotions between them finally spilling into reality. From that moment on, their dynamic changed completely. On set, every scene between them carried a raw intensity that stunned directors and crew. Off set, stolen glances became more obvious, late-night conversations more frequent. People whispered, speculated, but neither Shu Kai nor Tan Songyun gave any confirmation. They lived within their secret, bound by a voice note that had been a mistake but turned into destiny. Yet, it wasn't always easy. The entertainment industry thrives on perfection, and a romance between two beloved stars could risk careers, reputations, and fan loyalty. Paparazzi shadows grew longer. Even casual moments, Shu Kai offering her his jacket during a chilly evening shoot, or Songyun laughing a little too freely at his jokes, sparked headlines. They walked a fine line between truth and illusion, between public image and private reality. But Shu Kai's decision to keep that voice note became symbolic. It wasn't just a mistake he couldn't erase. It was a reminder of honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to face what both of them had buried for too long. Whenever Songyun doubted their connection, he would smile softly and say, "I still have your voice," reminding me. In time, she stopped seeing the accident as a disaster and began to view it as the universe's strange way of bringing them together. What she once wished she could delete became the foundation of something unshakable. The story of the voice note remained their most guarded secret, one that fans could only guess at, one that no gossip column could fully uncover. But for Shu Kai and Tan Songyun, it was more than a rumor. It was the moment everything changed. Because sometimes, the things we want to hide most become the very truths that set us free. And sometimes, an accidental voice note is not an accident at all, it's destiny speaking through a trembling voice, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. For Shu Kai, the voice note became more than just a slip of technology, it was a living, breathing reminder of something unspoken. He didn't just listen once, he replayed it again and again, each time hearing something new in her tone. The slight hesitation before she admitted her feelings. The shaky breath that caught halfway through. The soft laugh she let out, almost embarrassed at herself. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Vulnerable. Honest. Unscripted. And Shu Kai, who was always surrounded by polished lines, carefully directed emotions, and rehearsed perfection, found himself addicted to that rawness. The irony wasn't lost on him. Tan Songyun, the actress known for her control, had lost it for just a few seconds in a message never meant for him. And those seconds shifted the axis of his world. What shocked him the most was how much the voice note mirrored his own unspoken thoughts. During countless late-night shoots, he had fought against the very feelings she described. He'd convinced himself their chemistry was just good acting, that the sparks were part of the job. But hearing her confession forced him to confront a truth he'd buried. It wasn't acting. It had never been acting. One night, alone in his apartment, Shu Kai poured himself a glass of whiskey and dimmed the lights. He pressed play again. The sound of her voice filled the room, soft and trembling. He closed his eyes, letting it wash over him. "If I'm being honest," her voice whispered through the speaker, "I don't know where the script ends and I begin anymore. Especially with him. When he looks at me, I can't breathe. It's dangerous. Dangerous." The word echoed in his chest. She had called it dangerous, and she was right. What they were playing with wasn't safe. Their careers hung in the balance. Their reputations could be shattered. But for Shu Kai, that danger was intoxicating. It was proof that what they had wasn't a fabrication of cameras and directors, it was real. The next day, during a romantic scene, Shu Kai delivered his lines differently. Softer, deeper, filled with a weight the director hadn't asked for. Songyun noticed immediately. Her eyes widened slightly, her breath hitched, but she stayed in character. Their gazes locked longer than scripted. Crew members exchanged glances, sensing something off-script was unfolding. The director clapped his hands, calling it perfect. But Shu Kai knew it wasn't acting anymore. Still, he said nothing to her. He couldn't. Not yet. The voice note was his secret weapon and his shield, a reminder of everything unspoken. But one evening, during a dinner with cast and crew, Songyun accidentally revealed a crack in her composure. She laughed at something Shu Kai said, then quickly covered her mouth, as though she had let something slip. Shu Kai caught the look in her eyes, a flicker of the same fear and longing he had heard in her message. Later, when everyone else had left, he walked her to her car. The night air was cool, the city buzzing around them, but between them it was silent. She fumbled with her keys before whispering, "Shu Kai, do you ever feel like we're not just acting?" He froze. For a split second, he considered confessing everything, the voice note, the nights he stayed awake replaying it, the way it haunted him. But instead, he gave her a careful smile and said, "All the time." Her hand stilled, her eyes lifting to his. And in that brief moment, the truth hung in the air, heavy but unspoken. Back in his apartment later that night, Shu Kai pressed play once more. But this time, something was different. He wasn't just listening for comfort, he was strategizing. He realized why he hadn't deleted it. It wasn't simply about holding on to her voice. It was about holding on to evidence that what he felt wasn't one-sided. The industry was brutal. Relationships could be denied, buried, or twisted by rumors. But that note was real. It was proof. Proof that beneath the layers of acting and pretense, something genuine pulsed between them. And then, the unthinkable happened. One morning, Songyun walked onto set looking pale and tense. Shu Kai noticed instantly. Between takes, she pulled him aside, her voice urgent. "Shu Kai, I think I made a terrible mistake." His heart stopped. Did she find out he kept the note? "My phone," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one could hear. "I didn't delete that voice note from my sent folder. My manager sometimes checks my messages. If she finds it, if anyone finds it." Shu Kai placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, cutting her off. "No one will find it." But she shook her head, panic in her eyes. "You don't understand. If it leaks, if anyone hears what I said." He didn't let her finish. For the first time, he took her hand firmly, meeting her gaze with a quiet intensity. "Songyun, I kept it safe. I won't let anyone else hear it. I promise." Her breath caught. "You kept it." There it was, the moment of truth. Shu Kai had revealed his secret. For a long beat, she just stared at him, shock written all over her face. Then, slowly, her expression softened. "Why?" she whispered. He hesitated, then finally admitted what he had been carrying inside. "Because it's the only thing that ever told me I wasn't imagining this. That maybe, you feel it too." Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence between them said everything. She turned away for a moment, struggling to compose herself, then looked back at him with tears in her eyes. "You weren't imagining it," she said, her voice breaking. And just like that, the voice note transformed from a source of shame into a bridge between them. What began as an accident became their shared secret, the fragile thread tying their hidden feelings together. Shu Kai would still play it sometimes, not out of obsession but out of reverence. To him, it wasn't just a recording, it was the spark that lit a fire they could no longer deny. And for Tan Songyun, what she once wished she could erase became the very thing that proved her most vulnerable moment had led her to the one person who truly understood. Because in the end, it wasn't just a voice note. It was a confession neither of them had the courage to make face to face until fate forced their hearts to collide. Don't forget to like if you loved the story, share it with friends who need some drama in their day, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping celebrity stories you won't find anywhere else.